An extremely volatile atmospheric setup will be possible this weekend across the Midwest, Ohio Valley, Deep South, and Eastern Mid-Atlantic as we go into Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, bringing the threat for significant severe weather, including the possibility for even a substantial tornado outbreak across the Deep South and the lower 48 here, as we also have got the threat for extreme to critical fire danger across the southern plains and central high plains, as well as a blizzard possible in the upper northern plains with this large major storm that will be coming across the United States this weekend. So I'm going to bring you guys that forecast here. We're going to talk about everything in depth. We're going to hone more in on that forecast for severe weather and talk in depth on that fire coverage. We'll do a little brief segment on our winter weather for the northern portions of Wyoming, the Dakotas, and Minnesota. But we're going to focus more on that severe weather threat here, as we've got the potential for a very, very large severe weather outbreak this weekend here. So I'm going to dive into that, guys. This is your March 13th, 2025 weather update here, and let's get right into it. Alrighty, and on your screen here, you guys can see two different things ongoing. We've got a leftover remnant shortwave trough that is here across the eastern seaboard, giving us a threat for a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings are actually ongoing here as I'm making this video for you guys. General wind and hail out there today. Very, very isolated marginal risk for portions of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia this afternoon. This shortwave trough will be exiting the country later on this evening. We could still see a couple more isolated showers and thunderstorms, but as daytime heating does preclude, we will see that threat go down and pretty much will be diminishing by the end of the evening. I want you guys to also pay attention to the right side or the left side of your screen here, as you can see the massive blob of clouds going on over here along the western coast. This is our storm system that will be setting up across the high plains late tonight through tomorrow morning, giving us the threat for a volatile severe weather setup. I use that word very, very lightly, and I don't use it very often. The Storm Prediction Center has already used that word as well, and we'll get to that here in just a second, but we'll have three different things going on. We're going to have a potential blizzard setup conditions up here in portions of the northern plains and into Minnesota. We're going to have fire danger across the southern plains and into the Midwest here, and then we're also going to have a significant severe weather outbreak, multi-day severe weather outbreak, and possibly even a tornado outbreak on Saturday. More than likely a tornado outbreak likely on Saturday, as we are continuing to see a very, very explosive atmosphere for tornadoes, damaging winds, and extremely large hail. So that's what we've got on tap here. We'll go ahead and walk you guys through the fire danger forecast. Alrighty, and on our day one fire outlook here for today, we do have an elevated fire risk in the orange shaded color that basically extends from the southern plains up here into New Mexico all the way into the northern plains. Critical there in the red, as we are expecting very, very strong winds to develop later on this evening and through this afternoon, giving us that threat for wildfire conditions. Make sure you don't burn and don't be outside burning anything. This can cause a lot of problems, as we've seen in California and in some portions of Texas already this year. Make sure you guys do not burn if you were out in these areas. And we look at our day two forecast, and this is for tomorrow, as we have an extreme fire risk zone. This is basically like a high risk for severe weather, except it's for fire danger. They are basically saying at the Storm Prediction Center here that the threat for a wildfire outbreak is possible given the low-level jet that'll be intensifying with our trough intensification. We've got a surface cyclogenesis that's going to be happening over our low pressure system in the northern and central plains tomorrow morning. Basically a rapid deepening and strengthening low pressure system that's going to be dropping pressure very quickly. And with that pressure drop, you get strong low level jet winds that flow on the southern end of that. So we could have wind gusts of 70 plus mile per hour from portions of northern Texas up through Oklahoma into southern Kansas. Outside of that here, winds could exceed 30, 40, 50 miles per hour wind gust wise. These aren't going to be sustained winds. They'll be wind gusts, but it's still going to be a very, very windy day out there. So make sure you guys do not burn anything. I beg of that. We don't need any more conditions or wildfire issues ongoing, and hopefully that does not happen. And you can see that elevated critical condition also even moves into portions of the Midwest and into the northern portions of the Ohio Valley there, as we are still expecting severe weather on top of that, but we could see what's called dry thunder and dry lightning. It's typically when you get in that ISO dry section there across western Missouri and eastern Kansas, you can get thunderstorms that develop with no precip. I know that's crazy that I say that, but you can basically just get what's called thunder and lightning that comes from these thunderstorms, and it doesn't rain, so it can happen. And then looking at the day 3 through 8 outlook here, we do have a couple more days of day 3, day 4, and day 5 here, and day 6 of potential wildfire conditions going into the next couple of days. So that's what I've got you guys for you there. We'll go ahead and jump into the severe weather category for today. And I mentioned earlier that there was the threat here for a marginal risk for severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center, and you guys can see here, looking at that marginal risk there across Mississippi and at Georgia, northern Mississippi, extreme there, Alabama and into Georgia here. We do have a small 2% tornado risk. We haven't had any tornadoes today so far, just a very conditional risk zone, so do be mindful. Have alerts on your phone if you are in those areas. We have a 5% wind and a 5% hail threat. So that's what we've got for today. Now, tomorrow for Friday, this is the first day of our significant severe weather outbreak and possibly even a tornado outbreak going into Saturday. We'll start with our day 5 or our day 2 outlook here for Friday, where we've got a moderate risk for severe weather. I did a post last night showing you guys the risk zones that were updated for day 2 and day 3, and this still is a moderate risk as of today across portions of eastern Missouri, southeastern portions of Iowa, western and central and southern Missouri, and western Kentucky and northwestern Tennessee. Enhanced risk outside of that there in the orange, slight risk outside of that, and marginal risk outside of that. So it goes 1 to 5 on the severe weather scale. We have a level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4 now. And in that risk zone here, we have a very strong tornado potential, guys. We have a 2% tornado risk in the green, 5% in the maroon, and a 10% hatched tornado risk. That hatched region there, basically extending from southern Iowa through Illinois, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, and down to the deep south, is now a 10% hatched tornado risk, meaning there is a 10% chance within a 25-mile radius of a given EF2 plus tornado or higher happening in those areas. And I definitely think that there is definitely a conditional higher risk zone that could be added maybe if the Storm Prediction Center sees fit of a 15% that could be added down here into the deep south and into portions of the Tennessee Valley and lower Ohio Valley if conditions do decide to develop. Now, there is going to be 2 different modes that happen with this, and I want you guys to understand this. There's going to be a northern mode and a southern mode, and the northern mode is going to be heavily forced synoptically from our low pressure system moving in. That pressure drop allows for a cold front to basically develop. You get forcing with that cold front, and even with our dew points being some sort of the way lacking into the 50s and mid-upper 50s, we're still going to see strong severe storms develop, and there's going to be a significant damaging wind event that basically develops along that corridor here from basically Iowa into the southern portions of Missouri. St. Louis area, we could be seeing winds up to 90 miles per hour or higher tomorrow, wind gust-wise, going into Illinois with this. And then the southern mode, as I mentioned, there's what's going to be called a cap in the atmosphere. With our dew points coming in a little bit later in the nighttime, we probably won't see that cap get broken until about 8, maybe 9 p.m. if it does get broken. If the cap does get broken, it's basically a temperature inversion aloft in the atmosphere. It's a separation between dew points and temperatures, or your temperature it's at your surface, and basically what it allows for is for convection to kind of be halted. You don't get a lot of over convection, you don't get a lot of thunderstorms that can exceed that cap if there is a strong cap in place. Now, here's the other scenario. If that cap does in fact break, we could see a couple intense supercells develop in this corridor between 8 p.m. tomorrow night and early as soon as sunrise Saturday morning. So this is the area we're going to be watching for long track potential tornadoes, even up in the northern portion with embedded supercells. I also want to mention not just the tornado risk, the damaging wind threat. We got a 45% hatch, 30% hatch, and 15% hatch tornado risk, and especially in that 45% risk zone. St. Louis, Missouri, getting down there into portions of western Illinois there, southern Illinois, eastern Missouri, northwestern Kentucky. I myself am also in that risk zone as well, believe it or not. So hopefully our power does not go out tomorrow night on stream while we're covering this. That would be super beneficial if that does not happen. And then outside of that, we have a 5% and a 15, or a 5% and a 15% wind threat non-hatched, meaning 60 to 75 mile an hour winds. But this corridor right here that is hatched, we have a higher chance of seeing wind gusts over 75 to 90 miles per hour in that region tomorrow. And also on top of that, not only the tornadoes and the wind and the hail, or the wind and the tornadoes, we have the hail threat here, a 30% and 15% hatched hail risk, meaning hail could exceed 2 inches in diameter in that hatched region there for portions of Missouri, Illinois, and western Kentucky, northeastern Arkansas, and northwestern Tennessee. Outside that hatched risk, we have a 15% regular risk here for hail, 5% risk for hail in the maroon there. So overall, a very, very volatile atmospheric setup across the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and deep south for Friday. The Storm Prediction Center could potentially do some modifications to this overnight tonight. We'll see what they do. We will be also live covering this in real time tomorrow. We will be live streaming early tomorrow afternoon, getting y'all ready for this and covering this from start to finish as always. Now, the big day. Everybody wants to know about Saturday, and this is the day that everybody's talking about. Everybody's talking about both days, but Saturday is going to be our main day for a tornado outbreak, more than likely. We now have a second moderate risk. I want you guys to also understand something. Day 3 moderate risk zones, very, very rare, do not happen very often. And the Storm Prediction Center issued that at 3 o'clock this morning and has actually updated this afternoon, as we now have a wider moderate risk zone here. We are expecting a per NWS here, a particularly volatile atmospheric scenario across portions of Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and the panhandle of Florida, and even getting up into Tennessee here. If you are in that orange or red shaded area, especially, the threat for long track EF2 plus tornadoes, maybe even EF3 plus on the table, as well as damaging significant wind gusts and large hail. I'm really going to be reiterating Saturday's risk zone more than anything. If you live in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, you have got to be prepared for this event. We will be covering this event. More than likely, this will be ongoing starting early Saturday morning, so I probably will end up doing a 48-hour stream starting Friday afternoon and going all day through Saturday through Sunday morning. So we will be live covering this both days and possibly Sunday starting from start to finish. Outside of those orange and enhanced risk zone and moderate risk zone there, We do have a marginal risk that extends all the way up to the northern Ohio Valley and into Pennsylvania, slight risk that extends out. This is somewhat I call a conditional risk zone. If we do get instability and the right ingredients to in fact set up over the afternoon hours and the late morning across Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana there, we could see a conditional damaging wind risk, tornado risk, and hail risk up there. So we'll be watching all modes. But I'm going to say this, guys, and this is probably the first time I've ever said this in a video. I think we're going to get a high risk. We rarely ever get high risk issued from the Storm Prediction Center. We actually only had one last year, and that was April in Oklahoma. We had a high risk for tornadoes. I definitely think a high risk is on the table for the National Weather Service, and that would be a 5 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. It does not happen that often. We typically get maybe 1 or 2 a year. It is March, the middle of March here. It is definitely possible with this setup, and I'm going to kind of walk you guys through why that is here in just a second. But once again, very, very volatile atmospheric setup here on your Saturday. You need to have a way to get alerts on your phones. I will also stress this as well. If you live in a mobile home, please, 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 please have a way to go somewhere else. This is a setup where if you get put in a tornado warning, you could be experiencing an EF2 plus tornado. Tornadoes like that scale can cause mobile homes to completely flip over. If you have a secondary option to go somewhere else, a basement, a storm shelter, somebody else's house, your friend next door, this is the time to be doing that. This is a very, very serious setup, and this does not need to be underplayed whatsoever, as we could be seeing, once again, a very, very volatile setup here on Saturday. Now, I want to walk through the timing of this. We're going to start with the upper Midwest and the northern plains, go to the Ohio Valley, and then go to the deep south. This was only going to show, the models are only going to show Friday afternoon through about early to midday Saturday morning. So when we're in the stream this afternoon or tonight doing our live stream, kind of talking about this, and in tomorrow's video, I will definitely have a full view of all of through Saturday. So make sure you guys stay updated on the page. We'll also be posting updates on all other social media platforms that I'm on as well. But make sure you guys stay updated. We'll have continuing updates covering this. We'll go ahead and start out with the Midwest here in the upper plains. We're going to start through Friday. Nothing ongoing for much of the day on Friday. It should be a relatively quiet morning. Although once that low pressure starts to deepen, you see explosion of thunderstorms and supercells. Now, here's the deal with, once again, on Friday afternoon. The HRRR model here suggesting a pretty tight squall line developing here. This is where that hatch damaging wind risk is going to be in place for significant winds of 60 plus miles per hour. You start to see here, as we go closer to the dinner time hour of 6 and 7 p.m., we have a massive squall line extending from basically the central Missouri corridor all the way up here into Iowa and into southern Minnesota. Now, embedded within this line, we could see the chance for EF2 plus tornadoes, maybe even some brief tornadoes in there. You'll start to see some of those black tick marks show up there and those darker colors as that line moves its way east for the chance of embedded strong tornadoes. Now, as this storm system rushes off to the northeast here, by around 11 p.m. to midnight, we should start to see this line weaken as it crosses into northeastern portions of Illinois. It still will be strong. It still will be producing strong winds and possibly a couple of tornadoes, but this line should start to weaken as it gets closer to the overnight hours, as we lose basically a lot of our instability. Our instability is going to be shoved down to the south, and we'll have higher dew points down to the south. So that's what we've got for the setup here for the northern and upper Midwest. Now, I mentioned the Ohio Valley and the northern portion of the upper mid-south here. We're going to talk about you guys here next, and going through the same process here, you're going to see those storms initiate up here into portions of northern Missouri, Illinois, and eastern Iowa. Now, I want to talk about something. There is a big question mark on if we're even going to get severe weather along this corridor here from western Tennessee, western Kentucky. I want you guys to understand, once again, the capping inversion ideal here. What the capping inversion does, once again, is it allows for storms to basically fire off, but if that capping inversion is not broken, those storms cannot lift above that layer in the atmosphere that's basically unstable, we won't get severe weather. It's very, very minimal. It can allow for basically storm systems to kind of bust in a sense of things. Is that going to happen? Honestly, I think it could happen. I think we could get lucky if you're down here along the Mississippi, but it doesn't mean you don't need to take the risk zone seriously. We're going to have to kind of just wait to see how conditions start and get going. If we do get higher dew points that move into the area quicker and instability, and that atmosphere can get broken, we could see a very volatile setup tomorrow night across Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, eastern Missouri, eastern Arkansas, and western and central Tennessee. As you see a couple storms do get going on here, and you can see more of a cluster of general thunderstorms. I haven't really seen these models really showing yet any, big time supercells quite yet, but this is definitely something that needs to be watched. If they do see that capping bust through and we do get these storms to fire off, we could see a couple strong tornadoes, damaging winds up to 60 plus miles per hour, as well as some large hail in there. So be very, very mindful of that. That's going to be around 8 p.m. to midnight there on Friday night going into Saturday morning, and then the leftover remnants of this storm system moves in to southern Indiana, western Ohio, and central and eastern Kentucky Kentucky by Saturday morning. And I don't really think this is going to be the main event for Saturday. We'll get to that here in just a quick second, but I want you guys to see the southern mode down here. We already will have ongoing supercells and thunderstorms trying to initiate in our southern mode across southern Tennessee, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, and northern Georgia. And this is going to be around 3-4 o'clock in the morning. So that southern mode gets going as the central mode is kind of dying out a little bit. We'll see those dew points exceed. We'll see the tornado parameters exceed. We'll see the instability get going. So this is going to be a 1, 2, 3 kind of layout here. Northern mode, middle mode, southern mode, and then we'll be strictly playing the setup here for Saturday across the southern portions of the deep south here, central deep south, and into the Tennessee and Kentucky Valley. So we'll go ahead and move down here as well, and we'll talk about what's going to happen here in the deep south. And this is where I'm very, very concerned about, is going to be the deep south here for you guys. Once again, if you live in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, and southern and central Tennessee, you've got to be very, very mindful of this, as I expect a major significant severe weather outbreak as well as a potential tornado outbreak. So morning time convection, really going to be, I don't think, much of a limiting factor, at least as of right now. We could still see some morning time supercells. You can see a couple storms getting going early Saturday morning there between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. A couple of those could produce some tornadoes down there in southern Mississippi and Alabama, so we do need to watch this. But the overall tornado risk really doesn't start to get going until right around sunrise. You can see bunches of supercell isolated thunderstorms here. Supercells are those updating road draft thunderstorms here that we could see. Those updrafts, I can't say the word today, I don't know why, guys. Those rotating updrafts here going through Sunday morning or Saturday morning. We could be seeing the threat there for that severe weather getting ongoing there as soon as sunrise. And then as those thunderstorms organize and work their way east, we're going to see a couple round of supercells move through, and then we eventually get a squall line / semi-discrete supercells going through Mississippi into Alabama. This is as far as the HER model goes out, so we'll have the rest of this update later on this afternoon. But once again, I cannot stress this enough, guys. Very, very explosive and volatile atmospheric setup on Saturday going into the deep south. I am very, very concerned about this area. I think we could definitely see a couple violent tornadoes as well as some significant damaging winds, but this is definitely something we've got to watch. So if you were in those areas, we need to have a way to get alerts on your phones. Once again, we will be live covering this from start to finish, but that's what I've got for you guys. We'll have another update tonight as well as the stream tonight, and also let's go ahead and get into that snow potential up in the northern Midwest. As I mentioned, there will be a pretty significant snow event that could develop up here into the Dakotas and into portions of northern Iowa and northern Minnesota behind the severe weather risk. We're going to have some pretty cold temperatures that are going to come in behind this. We also could get some blizzard conditions. I think we'll get blizzard warnings somewhere along the Dakotas here up into northern Nebraska. But as this low pressure system moves through Friday afternoon, you're going to see those blue shaded colors there. You can see the low deepening, 970 millibar low here, 974 I should say, not 970, spiraling up towards Canada here. And on the backside of that, that cold air mixes in. We get snow showers to break out across portions of the Dakotas here, northern Nebraska, getting into Minnesota overnight. And I do think that threat for blizzard conditions, 60+ mile-an-hour winds, as well as visibility issues will be possible going into the Dakotas here late overnight Friday into Saturday morning before this lifts off very quickly here. So I do think overall snow totals will be anywhere from 3 to 5 inches, maybe some isolated 5 to 8 inch totals here along this corridor here, but overall looking at a very minimal snow event for you guys. So that's what I've got in today's forecast. I know this was a lengthy video. I'll have a live stream update for you guys here later on this evening. Also, get out there and enjoy that lunar eclipse tonight, guys. We have a lunar eclipse happening nationwide across the whole United States starting around 11 o'clock tonight. You guys can look up that online if you need those local totals or those local time zones for those, but I will be outside that. We'll probably go outside and live stream that tonight as well. So lots of live streaming coming, guys. If you guys can't tell, I've been talking a lot. I'm exhausted. I've done lots of these updates today, so I will see you guys in stream tonight. Be safe, be weather aware, and we'll see you guys in the next one.